that this has really been going on as election season, especially here in New Jersey, where we've had our ballots for weeks now, and we've been imploring everyone to please return those ballots. And now we are past the time when you should be putting them in the mail, but instead using those secure drop boxes or bringing it directly to the polling place. And I'm so grateful to have with me tonight Martin Luther King III, who supported me from the very beginning of this race. When you came in and you joined us not only in Atlantic City, where you went with us to visit the school children and talk to them about why democracy is so important, but you also came to Wildwood on the day of that Trump rally, where my opponent, Jeff Van Drew, brought President Trump in to stump for him in New Jersey. And we said this really requires something of us, that we push back against the messaging that we've heard throughout this administration, one that's divisive, that's hate-filled, that tells us that that everybody is not on a level playing field, and that's just fine with him, and that he's going to look out for himself, and he's going to look out for the top 1%, and, you know, those in South Jersey who have struggled for years, long before COVID, but who are really having a hard time now, just aren't part of this path forward. So, you know, you were there that day, and our families have a long history. So I'm honored that you are continuing that friendship with not just Patrick, but with me. And as anybody watching this knows, Martin has devoted his life to fighting for equality and justice and for civil and human rights here in the United States and around the world. And Martin was just telling me about the interest that there is abroad on what's happening in this election, not South Jersey, but in this country, what we're doing and how people are voting, and maybe even how some people are being kept from voting and using their voice. And you've just been a loud and consistent voice over the past 4 years, a voice of light, pushing back against the darkness. And that's what you did that day in, it really was dark out in Wildwood at that time. But you've been doing that against the hatred and racism that we've seen from this administration. And for the past few months, you've been devoting your time to make sure everyone knows that their voice and their vote matter, and that this election is the most important of our lifetimes. And so much is at stake for all of us, especially communities of color. And so now we're just one day away, and that's why we're here. So Martin, thank you for being here tonight.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, and thank you for what you've done. First and foremost, your candidacy represents so much, but the fact that you've been a teacher, obviously a mother, which is critically important, because we need sensitivity in leadership today. And there's so many issues that you have raised and that we know that you're going to address. And you know, we've had so much, as you said, negativity in this nation. Dad used to say a voteless people is a powerless people. And that most important step that we can take is that short step to the ballot box. One of the things I want to encourage this afternoon, this evening, is for everyone to identify 10 people and encourage them to vote. Now, we know a lot of people have already voted. That's great. But those who have not, if 10 call 10 and 10 more call 10 and 10 more call 10 and 10 more call 10, we will have a glorious and victorious day on tomorrow evening for the state of New Jersey, for your district, Amy, and for the United States of America. We need to, of course, vote all the way down the ticket and all the way up. A lot of people just vote for president, but it's not just president. It is Congress. It is senators in some cases. It is county elected officials, city and state elected officials in some communities. And so I just cannot say enough about how important, as you've just enumerated, this election is. This is the most important election, I believe, of our lifetime, because we determine as a nation whether we're going to go forward in a very positive way to build coalitions. When you talk about this pandemic that has intercepted all of our lives and tragically killed 230,000 people, 9 million plus impacted by this virus, and the numbers are growing. And you have a president who says, well, there's nothing we can do. We didn't want people to really know. That should be enough for all of us to vote to make our nation become what it ought to.
What we're seeing right now is about 70%, just above 70% of registered Republicans have voted in this district, and just under 70% of Democrats in this district have voted. But this is a district that's primarily unaffiliated voters, and only about 42% of those unaffiliated voters have voted so far, of likely unaffiliated voters have voted so far. So when you say to reach out to 10, I will tell you we've had anywhere from 300 volunteers working the phones on up, but they get a lot of people who don't answer the phone. But when you're calling your own contacts, those people pick up. So the 10 calls that you could make tonight to ask people if they've voted, one, and two, if they haven't, to tell them to bring that vote by mail ballot that they got to the polling place or to a drop box instead of using the provisional ballot that's there, making sure they know that there are no machines in New Jersey, that this is all vote by mail election. So the one they got in the mail is the one they should use. And even if they want to do it in person, bring that piece of paper with them and use that. We'll go so much further because it's a personal ask from you instead of a stranger calling on the phone where maybe they'll hang up on them. We all know we get too many calls. We get those everything from telemarketers to robocalls, and we're doing all of those that we can. But if each person can make a call to 10 people on their list, you may think somebody would have, of course, voted, but you would be surprised. There's still a whole lot of people we need to participate. So I'm making that request, and I know you're doing this for a lot of people. You mentioned before we went live that you've been helping in races around the country. And where are you most concerned about right now?
Well, I think always there is concern in the battleground states. Florida is supposedly neck and neck. Iowa was, but now this morning they said Iowa has changed. It sounds significantly, because I think that the Democratic apparatus was looking positive. Pennsylvania is looking close, although it feels like the Democrat apparatus will pull it out. But the fact of the matter is, whether you're in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, or whether you're in New York, or whether you're in Massachusetts, people have to continue to vote. In the United States of America, historically, out of the 170 or so countries that are democratic countries, we voted in the past. I think it's going to be far bigger this time, at 139. So 138 countries voted at higher levels than us. I don't believe that's going to be the case this time, because we've seen significant voting in a number of states. And if you have not voted in New Jersey, and I want to encourage people to please come out and vote. Get as I said earlier, there's nothing more important than we can do than cast our votes. And I believe change the leadership of our nation, build help those who are in Congress so that more can be done, as well as capturing the United States Senate. That is very important. If you live in New Jersey and you have friends in other communities where there are seriously contested senatorial races, it's important to understand that. We need to get them to vote, because if the Democratic Party takes over the United States Senate, a number of things can happen. We look at voter suppression that is occurring in communities of color all over this nation. And yet the United States Senate refuses to vote on the John Lewis Voter Registration Restoration Act. refuses to vote on the George Floyd Policing Act that addresses bad police behavior, not good police behavior. We want good policemen. We want policemen. Many are protecting and serving throughout our communities every day, but there's a bad element. And one of the ways we address these things is by making sure that we elect people in office like Amy Kennedy who take these issues to heart. I'm so concerned about the issue of climate change. I don't know why anyone would not be concerned. We had storms that came through here this weekend in my city of Atlanta, and over 1 million people lost power. And we saw more wind than the rain, but there was some rain. And yet these kind of things did not used to happen. And of course, tragically, in other areas, people lost their lives. But when we are focused on climate change, I mean, think about this administration walked away from a major climate initiative that a number of countries had signed. It's not just one country. It takes all of us working together. And so we should be concerned about generations yet unborn. That's why we need to resoundingly support Amy Kennedy and help push her over the line for us, the voters, not for her. She could be doing any number of things because she's demonstrated by being a teacher that she's concerned about our most precious resource, our children. And it's time for us to say we need that kind of leadership in Congress, and we need to come out like we've never come out before.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining just what's at stake in this election. You talked about my experience as a teacher, and I saw one of my former students, Mina, was on watching us tonight. So that was really fun to see how many people from this area that, you know, we get to interact with and talk about. But, you know, there's 3 million kids who we haven't heard from since March. You know, that's a scary number of students who haven't logged back into school since they left from COVID. And, you know, partly that's from a lack of access to broadband, poverty. We know impacts the availability of devices. We know that it may be anything from language barriers to, you know, depression to anxiety if it's a teenager that maybe just is lacking interest or enthusiasm in school, or any number of other reasons why they might not have rejoined. But that's a scary thought, and we're going to have to do a lot to combat that. And you talked about climate change, and, you know, we had those storms roll through here too. And of course, my street was flooded. It's been raining here for days. Today was the first day without rain, but, you know, the volunteers keep turning out, Martin. Some of them on the call, Laverne came out, rain or shine, and Susan comes out, rain or shine. Some of the folks who are watching right now, and of course, Julia, and they just keep showing up. And that's what's giving me hope that we're really going to see a blue wave this time, because the volunteers just will not be satisfied. They are doing so much hard work, making the calls, and I see a lot of hope in that. What are you feeling hopeful? Any spot where you're feeling really hopeful as we head into, first of all, do you think you'll sleep tonight?
I don't.
Or is it tomorrow night? You have to sleep tonight, because tomorrow night you might not.
Yeah, I'm going to try to, but I'm anxious. And, you know, I might add that you might know we have a unique distinction here in Georgia. Georgia has been a red state for a number of years now. And this year, it actually started last year, 2 years ago, when our gubernatorial race took place. And for the first time, a Democratic woman only lost by less than 50,000 votes. And there have been several 100,000 folks who've moved into this area, and most of them who now are registered have been Democrats. The unique distinction we have is we have 2 United States senators running. I think the only state that is happening. Usually, one of our senators is up at one time, and another at another election. But this year, because one of our senators resigned a year back, it created a scenario where 2 senators, both senators are up for election, or both Senate seats, I should say. Yeah. And there's a real possibility that both of those Senate seats could become blue Senate seats. It is that close in Georgia. So we're on pins and needles here.
Yeah.
I think that, when we look at states we've talked about like Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, which really have the opportunity to truly determine the election, it looks very good. But again, we cannot celebrate. We don't celebrate until the final vote is cast tomorrow evening and the final vote is counted, whenever that may be.
That's it.
Because it probably is not going to be tomorrow night for some of those states. But we got to make sure that every vote, that's the thing that concerns me. Not that people are not voting, because we know that a lot are, but we need to encourage more to vote everywhere. And certainly tonight we're talking about New Jersey. We're talking about your district, Amy. We're talking about the entire state of New Jersey. But we're also talking about across this nation. And the hope is that all of the things that others are doing to dismantle democracy by saying that mail-in balloting is illegal or is bad. I mean, all these things, when we know millions of ballots have already been cast, and many of them have been cast and presented at the post office. But I just hope and pray that America comes together and demands that all of the votes are counted, because clearly the president and his team and lawyers are trying to dismantle democracy. And so I expect a major positive victory for democracy. And I expect and hope to see new leadership all over this nation, so that, again, we move forward, not backward. There are a lot of things that have happened where we're looking backward. But the reality is, to resolve these very difficult problems, whether it's climate change, whether it's, most importantly, the pandemic, where people are dying every day, we need to be working together in unison. There is no way that we can resolve this issue with one side doing this, one side doing that, somebody else doing something else. It's about bringing people together. And I believe that's what certainly Vice President Biden and Senator Harris bring together as the top of the ticket. I know that's what Amy Kennedy brings as a congressperson or incoming congressperson. But you must deliver in New Jersey for Amy Kennedy.
Oh, thank you, Martin, so much. And, to all those watching, it is the whole ticket. I know Steve Dick from Atlanta County's on, and he's running, and down ballot all the way from Biden and Harris all the way down. It makes a difference. Your council members, every position, whether it's a surrogate or a sheriff, all impact our daily life, and we don't want to see those left blank. And your inspiration is just uplifting for all of us. So I couldn't tell you how much I appreciate you having been there from day one till the final hours here. This is really exciting for everybody who's been following you and your work, and who believes in a better path forward, a better future for our country, as you do, and a place that will be more equitable, more inclusive, and that works for all Americans. And I think that's what we're all on here tonight, hoping and praying for. So tonight, we'll all get some sleep. We're going to put our faith in the American people, but not just our faith. We're going to make the calls to make sure that they're doing the work. And tomorrow night, we'll stay up late and watch the results come in, and we'll be celebrating together. So I just want to thank you again for being on with me, and to everyone watching, that you've taken this charge and you're going to push it to the very end. We've got to get those unaffiliated voters from 40%. Let's get their numbers up and get those ballots in. Remind them to use their vote by mail ballot and put it in a drop box. And we have a hotline if people need help. So I think we'll be hoping that you're successful in Georgia and all around the country as well, all the races that you've been helping with.
Well, no, thank you. We're all holding our breaths, but we are participating, and we're participating in large numbers. I've been impressed to see the number of young people that I've heard who've cast their ballots for the first time. One of the things I think about, Amy, is I can't say enough how important it is for the leadership that you bring to the table. People can be positive or people can be negative, and you bring tremendous positive energy, which also says that it is really about building coalitions. It's not one party doing all or the other. It is finding ways to find some common ground. There's a lot of work that has to be done. And so we need your leadership, your voice, Amy, in Congress, and we need your vision, and we need this for America. Yes, you will represent the district, but you also will, and you will significantly represent the district, but you also will represent the interest of Americans and for children, for those yet unborn. It's said that the good politician plans for the next election, but the statesperson plans for the next generation. And to me, Amy, that's what you represent or will bring to the table, statesman-like leadership, because I know you will plan for the next generation by virtue of the fact of your having 4 children, but yet you have always demonstrated concern for those who are coming behind. And that is so, so important. And I want to thank you just for allowing me to participate and be a part of something positive that's taking place in New Jersey and Atlantic City and other areas of the state of New Jersey. Just thank you for this opportunity to be able to share this evening. But please remember, all of us must vote. I'll close with these words. Dad said once and many times, a voteless people is a powerless people. And one of the most important steps we can take is that short step to the ballot box.
Thank you. Beautiful. Thanks so much. We'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night.
Much success. Good luck.